Let's get some more on the news that we're still hearing about this morning, the deaths of 3 Kiwi soldiers in Afghanistan. Prime Minister John Key joins us now. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Morning.
So this is terrible news out of Afghanistan on the back of 2 deaths just 2 weeks ago. Do we stay in Afghanistan? And obviously people writing in this morning, texting, saying, get our boys home.
Well, firstly, let me just pass my condolences to the families of those who have lost their loved ones. It's a terrible time for them, time of great grief, and also for New Zealand. Secondly, in terms of when we come out, well, the Cabinet has been considering for some time, actually predating Rory Malone and Prali Dara's death, about the exact timing of when we'll leave Afghanistan. That will be in 2013. It is possible it will be in earlier 2013 than later 2013.
Has this changed recently, the talk of leaving earlier in 2013?
No, it hasn't changed as a result of the now 5 tragic deaths that we've suffered there. It's been a matter of us working with our partners up there about practically when we can get out. So there are a lot of moving parts up there which just make it not an easy thing to do. I mean, firstly, to leave, I mean, to leave early wouldn't be sensible, it wouldn't be actually practical, and it actually wouldn't be right.
Can you explain that, explain to people at home why the Kiwi troops stay in Afghanistan? Well,
firstly, we have an aid program up there, and so what our soldiers are doing is providing support for our aid workers so they can carry on doing their great work, which they've been doing since 2003. So for a long time now we've been providing them support. Secondly, we have over 145 military people there alone, as well as a big aid program. We have 3 large bases, and we're also working alongside our Afghan partners and our coalition forces. So it's just not a simple thing to say, okay, we're leaving tomorrow. We can work on a program of withdrawal and transition as we are, but to just turn around this morning and say, look, we're leaving as a result of these 3 deaths, wouldn't honour the 3 brave people that we've lost. That's the first point. And secondly, it's not the way New Zealand operates. We made a commitment in 2003. We've done now over a decade of work there. We have made substantial change in Bamyan province, and I just don't think we're the sort of country that cuts and runs. I think we'll have an orderly transition. Hopefully it'll be sooner as opposed to later.
Do you know how long it would take to get our troops out?
It's months, it's not days.
And in order of priority, who's most important there? Our own people, the Afghanistanis, or our allies, that relationship? Well,
our own people are my paramount concern.
Okay.
That's what I always worry about, and we feel it greatly when we lose them. These 3 people were part of the contingent that went up there that Rory Malone and Prali Dara were part of as well. So they're part of that Burnham-based contingent, as I understand it.
Has it become more dangerous for our troops in Afghanistan recently?
Look, it has become more dangerous over the course of about the last 3 years. So where Bamyan province has been historically the safest part. That road that they were patrolling, they were by the Doabe base, and this was part of a group of Humvees that were going along. My understanding is the explosion was enormous, and they would have certainly lost their lives instantly. So there was a very large explosion there, and that is, we think, as a result of these new bomb makers that are part of the new insurgent group that are up there, which we've been targeting for some time.
So this raises a couple of questions. Do the New Zealand troops have the right gear?
In our view, yes. So you remember a couple of weeks ago when we lost our 2 soldiers then, we announced that there were some changes that we could either publicly talk about and some that we couldn't talk about, but changes that we were making. We'd in fact been looking at those for some time because of the increased activity and concerns we had in that part of that region. I'll obviously be talking to the CDF, as I have already today, but this morning, about whether we absolutely have everything there to provide the safety we can, notwithstanding that they are operating in what is a war zone with some very sophisticated people.
Do you think our soldiers should all be in labs all the time instead of being in Humvees?
Apparently, according to the advice I had from the CDF, if it was a lab, it wouldn't have made any difference. The explosion was so great. In fact, there is an argument, a lab has 7 or 8 people in it.
Okay.
So apparently they would have died if they were in a lab or in Humvee, as unseen.
Do you know if reinforcement New Zealand soldiers have been sent to replace the 2 previously killed?
My understanding is yes. We dispatched people.
From what bases?
I don't know the answer to that. So I don't know the exact timings of when they went, but the information I saw prior to this, and I haven't actually asked that point in the last 24 hours, was that they were going, or at least some people were going last week, and that was a specialist group, amongst other things, because of this increased bomb-making activity that we've been aware of.
Because we've been targeting the insurgent bomb makers, but it looks like now they're targeting us.
Well, what is unusual is that we have a couple of Humvee patrols, and this Humvee patrol is part of a standard patrol of that road that we've been doing for a long period of time. It's a dangerous piece of road, but historically we've been successful in terms of the work that we've done there. So yes, they are targeting that piece of the road, and again, that's something logistically that the Chief of Defence Force can talk more about this morning.
Do you think you'll send in the SAS at this point?
The advice we had a couple of weeks ago was that sending the SAS as a fighting contingent, if you like, wouldn't actually make any difference. There's a lot of things I can't actually talk about with the SAS publicly easily, but they require a lot of backup and support. They don't operate always on their own. They have mixed equipment. There's various different things. So the general view was that that was unlikely to have made any difference. We'll continue to work with our allies and our ISAF partners, and obviously because of the heightened activity there now, that is on the radar screen of our coalition forces. But it's unlikely we'll send them back as a fighting contingent. As I think I said last week or the week before last, we are looking at sending a logistics person which is SAS based.
Do you know if the men killed in this latest tragic incident were SAS men?
They weren't, no.
Okay. Hey, look, had Kiwis started patrolling the Baglan province, which is known to be more dangerous, known to be where many of these bomb makers are rumoured to be from and making their bombs?
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether they've started that work yet, but that was one of the announcements we made a couple of weeks ago, that they were likely to push into the Baglan part of it. So to understand the layout, it's difficult.
Do you think we'll continue with that? Like, in the wake of this, are we likely to push on and move into the Baglan province?
I would have thought so. That's a question that we can put to the CDF. But the argument there is not that, because it's a logical thing to say, aren't we putting our guys potentially in harm's way if we do that? The advice we've had from the military, and they know this stuff the best, is that's less likely to cause us harm rather than more likely, because we're likely to be able to disrupt them earlier on rather than allow them to really gain all their forces and all their capability and then come after us.
And finally, do you know if the families have been informed?
Families have been informed, and obviously what the military also do is make sure they contact all of the families of everyone that's up there, because obviously it's a very worrying time for them. But no, the next of kin have definitely been informed.
John Key, Prime Minister, thank you.
On the deaths in Afghanistan, we can now go to Dr. Robert Patman, Professor in International Relations at Otago University. Good morning, Dr. Patman. Thanks for joining us again. Now,
thank you.
It's 2 weeks since we were talking of how much tougher it could get for our troops, and here we are, 3 more deaths.
Yes, tragically 3 more, and that brings the total to 10, of course. And it appears that the incident has occurred in the northeast part of the province of Baniyam. And I think, in a sense, it does raise the issue, once again, of forces, the Taliban forces, and the Taliban have claimed responsibility for this, getting across the border of the province from Baglan into Baniyam and carrying out this sort of episode. I noticed the Prime Minister said that he probably doesn't rule out some sort of effort to get to grips with the forces that are operating out of Baglan.
Yes, and not only coming into Bamiyan, but coming in with these huge bombs. The PM also just saying that it makes no difference whether it's Humvee or a LAV, except for the sheer number of people who would have been killed probably in this attack. So the Taliban are really upping the ante here, aren't they?
Well, one of the things we know is that the Hungarians are responsible they have responsibility in Baglan for the security situation. Unfortunately, they have been reluctant to actively patrol their area under their security jurisdiction. And what we do know is that insurgents like the Taliban do not like active patrolling because it keeps them off balance. If an international presence, confines itself to base and also confines itself to armoured vehicles, in a sense, that allows an insurgent force like the Taliban to be active and to mount operations, to take the initiative. What they do not like is the sort of patrolling that the Kiwis have been doing in Baniyam and elsewhere, where you get integrated within the community and you get intelligence from the community because you're seen as a presence. You're patrolling, you'll get known to local people. That's not happening in Baghlan, and it's not surprising these attacks are originating from Baghlan, where the Taliban seem to have making the running on the ground.
So how do we get, how do our defence forces get that to change? Is this a case of Hungary not playing their part here?
No, well, what we know is that the Hungarians have been reluctant to patrol their area in the way we'd probably ideally like for some time, and you know, all the accounts I've been reading is that there doesn't seem to be much that's going to change in the future. Many countries now know that the international presence is going to be pulled out by 2014. They're not probably going to adopt new techniques which could, in their eyes, run the risk of unnecessary casualties before a major troop pullout. So you know, I think it will probably be the Kiwis who have to take the initiative here.
Yeah, I feared that's exactly what you were going to say. Now, the Prime Minister has also just indicated no commitment to an early withdrawal, that we're not the sort of country who's going to cut and run. No, I don't think we can. I think it's important. If we want the Hungarians to do more, we certainly can't have that sort of influence by cutting and running. I think it's not just, as you probably gathered, it's not just New Zealanders who've been on the receiving end during the past few days, and a number of forces have been attacked, a part of the international coalition in Afghanistan in the last few days. But that doesn't do anything to diminish the tragic loss for New Zealand, and yeah, you know, thoughts go out to the families at this terrible moment. Absolutely, they do. Dr. Patman, just want to ask you, beyond Hungarians or other members of the coalition becoming more active in patrolling the various provinces bordering Bamiyan, the Prime Minister is also going to ask our CDF whether we've got enough for our troops to keep them safe. This issue that this huge bomb probably wouldn't have, nothing could have probably helped in the situation. But what do you think about this? Do we have enough resource for our troops?
Well, as far as I know, I don't have the expertise to say, given the fact it's an unfolding situation, Rawdon, and I think you have to be guided by the people on the ground, and everything I've read so far supports what the Prime Minister said, which is that the Chief of Defence Forces, General Rhys-Jones, has indicated they've got the appropriate equipment to be operating where they are. Nevertheless, given the level of that explosion, it makes you wonder if we do need, more, how should I put it, more reinforced armaments there, or armour protection. But given what the Prime Minister said, very little would have protected against such a remote detonating explosion.
Yeah. OK. Dr. Robert Patman from Otago University, thanks very much for joining us. Yeah, ask impossible questions at this stage because we don't know the answers, but, we're just...
Well, the PM said that the Defence Force advice he had is that we would be safer if our troops were patrolling Baghlan. Hungary's not patrolling Baghlan. You assume because it's a very dangerous part to patrol and therefore it puts us in Bamiyan province in more danger because the patrols aren't active, that presence isn't felt by the insurgents in Baghlan. So we now have to take further risk in a dangerous province to ensure the safety of people in our province. It's a catch-22 situation.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is a case that obviously it is interesting what Dr. Patman was saying, that these patrols themselves are proving so effective. Hence, Bamiyan has become, well, was relatively safe compared to Baghlan.